Welcome to the Baseline, everyone. Dr. Jessica Rose is a medical freedom stalwart. She is a biologist. She's a bears expert. She's a surfer. She's a bassist. Jessica was my guest on episode 11 of the Baseline, and so much has transpired since then. I am thrilled, I am honored, I'm overjoyed to welcome back to the Baseline the incomparable Dr. Jessica Rose. How are you today, Jessica? How have you been?
I'm okay. I'm a better chess player now.
Yeah, that was cool that we got to play some chess, although we should get back to it though. We weren't persistent in our training. We just snuck in a couple games there. But
Yeah, it's okay. It comes in spurts. I
yeah.
had some practice with some fellow Brownstone Institute people
Oh, good.
recently in Spain. Yeah, it was super fun. It was almost like speed chess. I lost almost every game, but I don't mind that.
That's what they call school of hard knocks, you know.
That's right.
As a matter of fact, I got beaten by one of my students the other day, and
Wow.
I was so proud of him, honestly, though, because he played this magnificent little game. It was kind of incredible what he did to beat me. It was like picturesque. Um,
Nice.
yeah, he kind of left a little bait out for me, and I said, "Okay, really, let's try this out then. Let's see what you do." And he made my king walk the plank.
It is really like we
But
all learn and teach every day.
yeah, exactly. Each one teach one. So thanks so much for being here, Jessica. And just for everyone to be aware, the circumstances of this week's show are a little bit different because the Progressive Radio Network is actually relocating. They're going to be in the same neighborhood, but they're moving about a block or a block and a half west of their current location. So there won't be a studio for me to broadcast out of this Friday. So this show is pre-recorded, and I'm so thankful that Dr. Rose has taken the time to be my guest again. I know you're extremely busy. And I would love to, first of all, speaking of you being busy, the first question I have for you is what are you up to right at this moment? Because I know you're always involved in all kinds of fascinating stuff and you seem to be collaborating with different people at different times. So just give us an update, please, as far as the exciting work that you're doing right this second.
Well, I'm digging back into VAERS. I'm looking at autopsy reports. I couldn't really do anything with VAERS and autopsies before because there just weren't that many reports. It wouldn't have been interesting. So it's kind of interesting now because there's a paper that just came out, that was actually like taken down and now it's back up, about autopsies and the frequency of um, vascular associated adverse events in the context of the COVID-19 shots. And it's exactly what I'm seeing. It's almost exactly the same percentage. I mean, it's a completely different method of like it's a different way to ask the same question. But I find that strengthens the conclusion more so than anything else because I remember when I was doing my math degree, there were uh, there were some professors who really disliked if you got to a solution to a problem in a way that's different that you were taught,
Really?
which always seemed very counterintuitive to me because I was one of those people that always got to the solution using a different methodology that was weird. And I would have to challenge them often, actually, as to why I would lose marks for getting the solution using a different method, um, because it's the correct solution.
Right.
So it's not the same thing, but it's approaching the same. It's asking this pretty much the same question. Uh, what are the autopsies showing associations with in terms of adverse events like death, using two completely different methodologies. So I haven't really done much with it yet. I'm just starting my investigation, and I've decided to get back into mapping. Um, frequency of reporting in the United States. Basically just because it's cool.
Yeah.
It's people respond very well to visualizations, and it's a very, very quick way to see, for example, what percentage of reports of autopsy were associated with cardiovascular adverse events in each state,
Right.
for example. So, yeah, that's what I'm doing immediately. I mean, immediately, I'm just sitting here petting my cat, so I'm not that busy.
Well, that's actually perfect that that's the study and the research you're doing right now, because it just ties in exactly with what I want to discuss with you today. But before we
Convenient.
get into sort of the heart of the discussion that I'm alluding to, I would love an update if you could provide one in regard to Plasmid-Gate, because that had just sort of been put on the table around the time of our previous interview months back. And I'm wondering if you kept up with that, and has anything else been discovered about it? Has any progress been made in any aspect of that discussion? Do we know how much harm is being inflicted on account of that? Is there any legal action in regard to that? I mean, anything you could tell us, basically. What do you have for us in terms of the whole Plasmid-Gate scenario, and what, if anything, has transpired in the past few months?
All right. So the first thing I would say is watch the World Council for Health expert hearing that took place yesterday. It's recorded and it's on their website.
Oh, just
Um,
yesterday. So that's pretty
yeah,
good timing for our sake.
exactly. Yeah, it's the second one that we've done. And it was the same the group of characters that provided the previously, plus some extra people. Very, very group of characters. My goodness. I mean, I always hear people say, I'm so proud to be among you people, but I'm like, yeah, no, that's what I'm saying, because like, what am I doing here? But yeah, really strong group of people with magnificent backgrounds, hardcore uh publications, and ratings and rankings, and as per the systems in place that also try and shut us down. But we talk a lot about DNA situation, and also an ongoing federal court case in Australia, whereby the those involved are trying to prove that the Moderna and Pfizer shots, which of course, contain modified mRNA wrapped in particles, are GMOs, genetically modified organisms.
Yeah.
So getting back to the DNA story, yeah, of course, we're very close to publishing our paper in preprint form right now. Kevin and me and David and Maria and Dave. And since we wrote the preprint, David's speaker, I see that my internet connection is unstable.
Yeah, it kind of
Um,
went out for a second there, but you're pretty clear right now.
so yeah, I'll just start from the preprint. So we're very close to publishing our preprint paper. That's me and David, Maria, and Kevin. And David's speaker has actually, he's from Canada. He's actually tested many more vials of Moderna and Pfizer products since we wrote the preprint. So we have more data. And of course, there are more VAERS reports. So the reason that's important is because we're actually looking at the levels of DNA contamination, which are found in every single vial that we've tested, versus the serious adverse event reporting rate in VAERS, to see if there's some kind of correlation there. And we do see what we think is the beginning of a dose response curve, which is very impactful, but
Mm.
it's very preliminary. So we need more data. We need to test more vials. In addition to that, David also tested 3 vials from that were administered in Australia. And these three were also found to be contaminated with DNA over EMA limits. And in addition to that, we've started a new deep dive into the possibility that there's double-stranded RNA contamination as well, which also causes immunological problems. So getting back to the DNA, however, we've been doing a lot of work looking into how that's going to cause cancer. Couple of papers are very clear. These are peer-reviewed, published papers in the literature that you don't even need foreign DNA integration in order to start cancer pathways from initiating cancer pathways in a cell. You just need it to be introduced into the cytosol of the cell. So this is really important because, yes, we do need to start testing people's cells to determine whether or not there have been genomic integration events, but we don't need to do that. First of all, the onus is not on us to do that, and we don't need to do it in order to have proof of concept that foreign DNA introduced to cells in this extreme method using these lipid nanoparticles, which are basically just protective fat bubbles, can in fact induce cancer pathways. And furthermore, back to VAERS, which, yes, okay, it's leaves rustling in the wind, but it is the CDC and HHS's pharmacovigilance database, and that's what it's designed to do. It's a safety signal detection system. So what we're seeing there is an uptick of cancers in the face of a reduction in administration because people aren't really getting the shots anymore, right? So why are the cancer rates going up?
Right.
And this is specific to rare cancers, breast cancers, acute lymphocytic leukemia in older people, etc. So there are all these compounding factors that are accumulating. And the disturbing part is that none of this is being brought forth by the regulators, the manufacturers, or any of the deciding bodies, the people who are supposed to be in charge of protecting the people from getting harmed by medical interventions. This is being brought forward by us, by the citizen scientists and citizen journalists, doing FOIA requests. This is Freedom of Information Act requests, which are exceedingly important these days, because basically forces the release of information that should be made free to the public in the first place. We're learning so much about what the regulatory bodies knew and withheld in terms of DNA, specific DNA components like the SV40 enhancer, their attitudes about it being there. It's just, yeah, a lot is currently going on, and we're fighting very hard, very much in the background for transparency, because a lot of people took these shots, and every single vial that's been tested so far in at least 4 different labs around the world have contained levels of DNA that exceed EMA guidelines. So that's the status of so-called Plasmid-Gate, DNA-Gate.
Okay, well, that was really thorough, and the timing is good in terms of what you referenced for us to go check out the hearing that happened yesterday. One question I have about the Plasmid-Gate thing, just to follow up quickly before we move on, is, and it's kind of, the whole thing is so confusing, when we talk about genetic stuff, RNA, DNA for the layperson, I don't think there's like, maybe there is some great crash course in that, but I don't want a fly by night geneticist working on the project. It seems like something you probably want to be pretty well versed in. But a question that I have for you, if I could organize my words properly in regard to this difficult subject, is it seems like there's a couple different levels of concern as it pertains to that. You have sort of just a contaminated product and sort of the harm that that could do to the individual, like from an immunological point of view. But then there's also this kind of notion of reverse transcription,
Mhm.
which does that mean the altering of the person, the mutating of the person? Is that a correct understanding of what that implies? That the person
It,
mutated, that their genetics have been changed?
so in terms of integration into stem cells or germline cells, like sperm and egg cells, yes, that is a contaminated genome.
Right.
And
So, but I want to ask you because I've heard some people suggest that, oh, there's no mechanism for that to happen. They're more concerned about part one, maybe that the contamination can just lead to just sort of health problems in the person,
Mhm.
but they're dismissive of this altering of people genetically. Would you be dismissive of that? Is that something that
No,
that
no, of course
that
not.
and
No,
okay,
no.
right. And then and you see pathways by which this would occur for those who say there are none.
Well, yeah, it's known. I mean, this is why we test for DNA when we use systems like plasmid DNA systems to produce products. It's very important that you remove foreign DNA because exactly what you said, not only can it wreak havoc in cells, but if you have integration events into the genome, into the wrong kinds of cells, that's really bad because that's going to be sticking
Yeah,
around generationally. So, oops, my internet
yeah.
connection is unstable. So what I said was, um,
I
the
I could
the
hear you pretty well. It didn't cut out too badly.
okay, good. So yeah, it's absolutely there are two full sides to this. I mean, and we don't have the reason why we can't write off the contamination of the genome in certain cells in certain people is because we don't have evidence to the contrary yet. And
Right.
hypothetically, this is very possible. Like I just said, this is why we test for foreign DNA contamination or presence in products before we inject them, because we don't want to bugger this up. Um, and the types of DNA that Kevin and David have found, namely this SV40 enhancer, is very functional. It's a gene therapy tool. It's well known. It's well documented in the literature. It wasn't disclosed, and it doesn't have a reason to be there. There's no reason to have this in there because it's a mammalian enhancer promoter. And we already have a T7 promoter in the plasmid to do the dirty work in terms of the manufacturing. So there are so many red flags here. And ultimately, I mean, we have to focus on the the result of what they've done. Number one, people are absolutely having an extraordinary number and range of adverse event occurrences. And we're seeing that as reports in pharmacovigilance databases all over the world. Cancers, autoimmune conditions, biological. I mean, it doesn't matter. You name it, and we're seeing it over-reported. And I don't mean because it's over-reported. I mean excessively reported in terms of historical reporting and bears in
Number of
particular.
cases.
Vaccine combined. And we
Wait,
have to
sorry,
start
say that
testing.
last part again that you did cut out there. So you said what, all vaccines combined?
Yeah, so in terms of the number and the range of adverse events being reported in the context of the COVID shots, there's no comparison between, the last 3-4 years and the last 30 years of data for all
Right,
vaccines combined in bears. There's no
right,
comparison. It's
right.
staggeringly anomalous.
Yeah.
Um, and so we also need to test people's cells. We need to find out if this is happening and in what percentage of people it's happening in. and if it's integrated into stem cells and germ cells, because if that happened, I mean, I almost understand why they have to hide it, because it's such a catastrophe. And it's, you know, a lot of people say, ah, they did it on purpose. And there's a part of me that believes that, because why wouldn't they have disclosed the SV40? Well, first of all, why is it in there? And why didn't they disclose it if it wasn't
Yeah,
meant to be a functional addition? So, but on the other hand, there's a lot of idiocy as well, a lot of
well,
hubris, a lot of, middlemen, a lot
yeah,
of
it was
research.
Philip Buchholz who introduced me to the term Hanlon's razor. I guess more people are
Yeah.
familiar with Occam's razor, but it was his comments where I became aware of Hanlon's razor, where you do not attribute to malfeasance that which can be attributed to incompetence and idiocy, basically. So yeah, we can still cling on to the idea that this was a Hanlon's razor event, you know?
Yeah. I think it's probably a bit of both. I'm just moving locations so I can ensure a better signal. Whew.
I think we're holding up pretty well. But so okay, so bear with me here, Jessica. I got some. I want to lay something out here for you because I have your brilliant mind online with me to help me flesh this out, and this is going to help me complete my next Substack, which I've been mulling around in my head for the past couple weeks. But the name of my article that I'm working on is Data. There is no data. And what I'm describing and what I'm getting at, and feel free to add to anything that I'm going to say here, correct anything that I'm saying here. But what occurred to me is that, first of all, we all know about the just massive propaganda surrounding these injections. Just they left no stone unturned, right? I mean, it was like every, celebrity that they could recruit, every politician, every institution was drafted into this campaign that everyone and everything should be injected with these injectable products, right? And they were so eager to give it to 12-year-olds and then eager to lower the age so that 6-month-olds could be injected with it. They actually, and I just, for the life of me, will never understand, they injected zoo animals with this stuff. I mean, you would
Mhm.
think that I'm making that up. I mean, this was, they actually, I don't know, what were they thinking? They were giving a human medical intervention to zoo animals, some of which have died suddenly. And that's been recorded in the Substack of Mark Crispin Miller. He will direct you to the articles that highlight this crazy stuff that I'm talking about. So the point is, first of all, let's be realistic. When you're cheerleading something, when you're pushing something 24/7 relentlessly, are you then going to turn around and be objective about it? So that's the atmosphere. That's just me laying the context and the atmosphere of what's happening and the atmosphere in which the so-called data collection would happen, right? But then we have very palpable reasons why the data will not be collected. And it's ironic because the trust the science people, they claim they're driven by science and data, but they're not collecting the data because one, they were rah, rah, rah going over 100 miles an hour in this direction. They're not going to turn around and say, wait a second, we made a couple mistakes along the way. They just want to play the game of see no evil, hear no evil. But then we have the issue of VAERS. And am I correct or am I incorrect in saying that medical professionals themselves, the doctors who are administering these shots, they're not even versed in VAERS. So you have many medical professionals who have not been told to make VAERS entries when appropriate. They've never been trained in the procedure. They were not instructed to by their medical institutions or any authoritative body or whatever. And then you have patients who have never heard of VAERS, right? I would speculate that the average vaccine recipient in America has just never heard of VAERS. And of course, if you even mention the term VAERS, you're contradicting the term safe and effective. right?
Mhm.
Because you're saying there are adverse events. You're going to promote vaccine hesitancy by alerting people to the system that they would record their vaccine injury into. So you have the system by which these injuries would be recorded not being promoted, not being talked about at all. It's almost a secret thing, VAERS. But then the other two things that I want to add on quickly, sorry for this really long question, but I think you'll know what to do with it. Um, is you have people, I'm noticing people with pre-existing conditions who, when those people die suddenly or take a sudden decline in their health and die shortly thereafter, it's very easy to say, oh, well, they were diabetic. Oh, well, they had lupus. Oh, well, we know they had even cancer. But many people were living with their cancer at a decent quality of life or had managed their diabetes or what have you. They receive their shots, they die, and then we just say, oh, well, they had diabetes. Well, no, they're actually vaccine deaths that will never be recorded. And then likewise, we have people who are older people who, if you're over the age of 60, well, you don't really get recorded. If you're over the age of 70, then then you really won't even be taken into consideration. But we have people who maybe would have lived till they were 80, but they died when they were 70. Again, vaccine deaths that will never get recorded. We just say, oh, well, no one lives forever. You never know when you're going to go. But again, it was a vaccine death. So sorry for that long statement, but is it correct for me to say that we don't really have data if there's no effort to actively record the data? Is that just a common sense? I mean, I like I said, I don't even want to use the term common sense anymore, but is that a fair remark?
I'm not sure we have no data, but we certainly could have better data. The reporting is absolutely discouraged, even for people who did know about VAERS. There are cases where Canadian doctors were trying to report adverse events through the proper systems and were persecuted for doing so. Not to mention that, if you submit 5 reports that you're absolutely sure as a medical professional are linked to the COVID shots, they can just say, yeah, no, they're not. Just like you said, it's because of this other thing, or because they're old, or because blah, blah, blah. So it's not that we have no data, it's that there is a lot of, what's the best word to say it? Botching, I guess, of data. Like, and I'm not just talking about pharmacovigilance databases. There's like a lot of data shenaniganing going on.
It sort of reminds me of the
However,
blind referee in professional wrestling.
yeah,
Like they're sort of the referee, but then they turn their back and all this stuff happens.
yeah. It's just it's deplorable what data scientists have had to deal with, from beginning to end. I mean, I remember the day when they announced that it was okay to mix and match the products, because I'm like, no, not from any point of view is that okay. There's no studies done to know at all what the effects on the human physiological system is going to be by mixing and matching these different products, even though they're both modified mRNA products. If you're referring to Moderna and Pfizer, they're still different.
Right.
But from a data point of view, I mean, that's where it really kicked me. It's like there's going to be no way to unconfound, like what's, like, even if we see something in the data, the best we'll be able to do is say, like, back it up with a disclaimer saying, well, we can't be sure, this is just a suggested, association type thing. So it's like it creates confusion in what's supposed to be hardcore, data, whereby there didn't really need to be any. And there's another point here too, with regard to VAERS. There's at least one other set of books that we, the public, don't get to see, that we can't download, which has much more data. more demographic data, more data entries, withheld data. Um, so yeah, there's a lot to talk about with regard to data, but I wouldn't say that we don't have any. There's some really smart people out there who can do amazing things, even with data that looks completely hopeless. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's
uh,
definitely not fair to say we have no data. That's sort of like overstating the case, I guess. But it's just sort of like, when you go about something so disingenuously in terms of really not being interested in the result, it's so compromised, it's so limited, it's such a, it's data on a smaller scale than what would be the case if any of this was done in a procedurally correct way, right?
mhm,
Like,
indeed.
like the confounding variables that you're mentioning, all sorts of things that just should have been really designated for study, that should be recorded. They just simply haven't gone about doing that. So that's stuff that we can only sort of speculate about or try to retrace our steps as well as we can in a necessarily flawed process.
Yeah.
But I guess could you also, since I know you've researched this a lot and you're one of the authorities on the whole subject of VAERS and how the data is recorded and the whole process of it. I mentioned a few reasons why VAERS info is and data is underreported. One, you have medical professionals who are not really trained or in the process, surprisingly. Two, and most people don't know that. They're not aware of the fact that, most medical professionals administering these shots, they have not been versed or trained in the procedure of making a VAERS entry. But then, like I said, you have the recipients who are even less informed, I would assume, than your average medical professional. But then also, as I've stated before, you can't make a VAERS entry if you're dead. So those are a number of reports that won't get reported because, well, who's going to report it? The person died, and the doctor is not running back retroactively to say, oh, let me see if that was possibly related. But what are some of the other reasons why VAERS is underreported, if there are some key reasons that people might not think about offhand?
Well, besides people being discouraged to report in the COVID era, there's the what would you call it? The normal, I suppose, underreporting factor in VAERS, which has been researched and published, somewhere between like, it's like for every 100 people who suffer an adverse event, only one will report type thing. So underreporting is just, it's a human thing, right? Like you're only going to have a certain percentage of people who ever get injured, um, make an association or bother with reporting, because reporting an adverse event to the VAERS system in particular is really annoying. It takes like a half an hour. It's a multiple page electronic system, and if you don't finish each page on time, it boots you off. You have to start again. So it's like the fact that there are over 1.6 million reports that you can actually have access to in VAERS it's just mind blowing when you think about the fact that underreporting is very real, and the difficulties associated with doctors, reporting because they were being discouraged. Um, the the vetting of the actual reports by the people working, on the data. And then the final, uploading of the report that successfully gets from a temporary ID to a permanent VAERS ID. I mean, it's wild. It's just wild that that many reports got through, quite frankly. And I wonder how many more there actually are, to be honest.
Sort of like the fire department who doesn't want to pick up the phone.
Mm, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, wow, it's so terrible, honestly, how there's so many people who I've heard who are in this, I call them the injury deniers, the see no evil, hear no evil people, who they just launch right into attacking VAERS, the credibility of VAERS, say, oh, that's not reliable. Well, then you should be advocating for a more reliable system, not just
Mm.
denigrating the existing system. And how would you think that that's an acceptable argument to take? It's basically saying, oh, well, we shouldn't be monitoring this. Just let it all fly. Let you know, let everything happen the way it's going to happen. We don't want to know because you're criticizing the existing system and not making any recommendation and have no desire apparently to improve it. It's pretty insane
Exactly.
to me, the argument of just criticize bears, but no, nothing better to offer as an alternative.
Yeah,
Um,
what's more ridiculous is when they criticize people who are actually trying to use VAERS data to draw, conclusions or to do causality assessments. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
there's
really.
more and more of this, assassinate the messenger and disregard the message than I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, and as soon as you see an ad hominem attack, you know that they don't really have a basis to discredit the work. So they have to go for the person. So it's a really, really big red flag to those of you who don't know. Like if you ever see someone insulting a person or someone's character, and the media does it, the legacy media does this a lot. It literally just means that they don't have anything else to go for, which probably is very strong evidence that whatever that person is saying is very valid scientifically.
Yeah, exactly.
It
So I
sounds
would like to,
ridiculous, but it's true.
I mean, it also it takes us into what I call reverse conspiracy theory land, where it's like you keep saying everyone's a quack, everybody's a kook. It's like, wow, there's a lot of kooks and quacks here who are PhDs, who are credible scientists with multiple publications. Like when you keep trying to pull the, everybody's crazy card, it's like that's pretty crazy too, eventually, when you're just claiming all of these people who are making pretty reasonable statements and just pointing to areas of concern, and you launch into these attacks against them consistently. At what point do we not realize, well, that's pretty hard to believe, actually, that all of these people are a bunch of, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs loonies who have been doing outstanding professional work up until this point. So I would love to ask you, Jessica, in terms of um, your personal feelings in terms of where we stand right now as a medical freedom movement. Um, what are you optimistic still that we are going to see justice at some point in some regards? I mean, obviously, I always point out, there's no bringing anyone back to life, unfortunately. Like justice is sort of a dubious concept in some respects, but do you think that there is going to be a day of reckoning for some of this stuff? Are you optimistic at all that people are little by little opening their eyes, that the truth is coming out realistically? And don't feel the need to be optimistic if you're not, but are you optimistic at all that progress is being made?
Oh yeah, it's not even about optimism anymore. It's like progress is being made. Eyes are opening. It's kind of inevitable, and you don't even have to be hopeful. It's the way that things are, and it I could say I predicted it, but it's not even a prediction. It's just it was always going to happen that the legacy media was going to start to roll at some point because, like I said years ago, you just can't hide that many bodies. You just can't do it. And when everybody knows someone or is someone who has had an adverse event experience with a medical product that was forced on at least half of the people who took it, I would say, you're you're going to get blowback. I mean, it's going to take some time because of the power of the censorship and oppression, but you cannot stop a tidal wave. It's just not a thing that you can do. It's nature. Um, so because of the nature of the beast, quote unquote, it will all come out. I mean, I was talking to someone the other day about, I don't know how many years from now it's going to be, but there's going to come a time when our children's children or children's children's children are going to be talking about this thing that we did in 2021 and 2 and 3, and how, you know, it was the worst thing that humans did to each other, and how we're going to talk about it like the Holocaust. How did that happen? How is it possible that so many people were just, you know, fear driven into compliance? How is it possible? I would never do that. You hear people saying that all the time. So it's, I see that coming in the future. It's now that doesn't answer the question, are the people very much responsible for this, like Birx primarily, and Fauci, are they going to go to prison, or get, you know, are the people who have committed treason going to get, you know, the death penalty, because that's what we've done in the past? Because it's just shocking that people can get away with trying to sell an idea that these shots saved millions of lives with no
I know
data
how
backing that
absurd.
statement. It is absurd, and more importantly, it's not data backed. But on the other hand, they've
But also,
killed.
where does the whole multiple, you know, boosters come into play with that? So it's like,
Oh,
are
it's
you
just
continuing to
complete and
save
utter
your millions of
bullshit.
lives as I take my ninth booster?
It's total bullshit. And Byron Bridle, he speaks to this in that testimony, the hearing that I mentioned at the beginning. So you'll hear him explain as a vaccinologist why that's bullshit. You know, I'm an
Right.
immunologist, so I knew it was bullshit from the beginning, because it's like, you're like, inoculation or immunization is a beautiful thing in concept, if it's not bastardized and abused to make profits for pharmaceutical companies, because you use a similar entity, a protein or a bunch of proteins, to a potentially destructive pathogen, in order to stimulate the immune response required to fend off that real pathogen when it challenges you in real life, so that you don't get sick. It's once. We have immunological memory. Like, that's the whole point of it.
Yeah.
If you ever require a booster, it might only mean that you're bringing forth the army more to the front lines. That's what it's going to do. You know, so it's just always been a lie, and they've preyed upon the fact that most people don't have immunology degrees. Most people will just, you know, look at someone in a white coat and a stethoscope and say, oh, well, they're a doctor and I'm nothing, so, you know,
Yeah.
they must be right. Why would they say this if it wasn't true, without actually knowing that they're literally just reading a playbook from an organization that is completely bought and sold by pharmaceutical companies who are making money off of this? So it sounds so cynical when you put it the way that it actually is, but it's much better to face the truth, and so that you can fight it.
I
And the way to
agree.
fight it, by the way, is to say no.
Yeah, seriously. I've said it in my articles, no, the most important word in the dictionary. That's the first word you teach a child to save their lives if you need to. If someone's about to put a fork in an electric socket, you don't scream yes, you scream no. You know, so yeah, the word no, please everyone, we need to employ that word more readily as they propose unacceptable stuff that we're supposed to comply with. So it's been incredible talking with you again, Jessica. I don't want to take up your entire day. I know you have incredible research and things that you're always working on. And we actually don't have the strict 1 hour time limit that we have for the normal live program. So I don't want to abuse that fact. But I'm trying to think off the top of my head what I wanted to ask you, and I just remembered, oh, yes, I know exactly what I want to ask you before I let you go, which is you made reference before we started recording to your latest Substack about the misuse of the word infighting.
Mhm.
Could you give us a little, without, I guess, restating the entire article, could you give us a little introduction to that? So our listeners here, of the Baseline listeners, could go check out that article with a little preface from you, the author. What happened in this latest Substack? Please tell us about it and what you're getting at a little bit.
Yeah, so it's about infiltration. It's kind of a sad thing to have learned, being someone who, for some reason, is involved in this kind of on a deep level. And by this, I mean, fighting back against tyranny,
Yeah,
and trying to bring, you know, to get some kind of data transparency on the go. Um, but within, the circles of people, there are certainly people who are infiltrators, and this is actually I reference an article written by Glenn Greenwald in 2014.
mm,
Everybody should, if you go to my Substack, it's there, it's linked. You really need to read that. It's about what's going on in terms of distracting and denying and doing all these things to get people's attention off of what's really important for them to pay attention to, distractions. So there are people who are put into these positions, whose job it is to create confusion in the people. And it's based on the same thing that I said before. It's like not everybody has expertise in this or that. So it's like really hard to know, when two people are saying similar things, which one is correct and which one is just talking out their arsehole to get attention or to distract people away from the real problems.
yeah.
So yeah, a lot of people are referring to this as infighting within the so-called medical freedom movement. I can't stand that term. I actually don't
Really?
like names and brands anyway. Yeah, I just don't like
Yeah,
labels at all. It's
yeah.
like
I know what you
the
mean.
same reason I hate fences. Um, it's like, yeah, so but you know what I mean when I say that, so that's why I use
Sure,
that term. Um,
sure.
so it's not infighting. There are actual bad guys and good guys. And so
Yeah,
if you see somebody that if you see two people that you've come to follow and trust, in a spat on Twitter or something like that, it can
yeah.
be very jarring to the person watching. It's happened to me a lot. And it makes you step back and say, oh
Unfortunately.
man, like what's going on here? Like you guys should just get along. And it's like, no, 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 no. Don't do that. Um, there's a reason why there are arguments, let's call them, going on. It's because somebody's right and somebody's probably not right. And I implore, with this article, I implore everyone to really, really, really uh like take a step back and get as objective as you can, and try and don't put your trust where it doesn't feel like it should be. If you have a funny feeling, and I know this sounds real scientific, but if you have a funny feeling about someone, really trust that. Really trust it, because we have these instincts for a reason. They're to warn us from danger. And so that might be what that is. And it just I wrote it because it needed to be addressed, because it seems like there's a mounting of this phenomenon, and I think that's the reason for that is obvious, and it's because the tidal wave is coming. And it's going to sweep away the nonsense of the safe and effective narrative, and a lot of these other things that a lot of people believe are true. It's going to wash them away. um and having said that, I mean, I'm a person who doesn't give a shit what you believe. I mean, I have no reason to judge anyone for believing one thing or another. It doesn't bother me. What bothers me, though, is when someone tries to convince me, especially in an aggressive way, to believe what they believe. So this is
Yeah,
another like
good
red flag.
distinction.
Like if somebody's getting aggressive or derogatory or not professional or trying to convince you to believe something that even if you're 50-50 on it, then you should probably take pause and just step away from that for a while and think about it in your own space. And then when you
Yeah,
come back to it with a clearer mind, you'll probably see, that person or that situation a lot better for what it is. So yeah, that's what that was about.
yeah. Well, yeah, I can't wait to read it. It sounds really insightful and interesting. And
Yeah, it got a lot of interesting attention, let me tell you.
okay, well that makes it even more interesting. But yeah, it's something that I finally crossed into that threshold myself. Whereas when I started hosting this show, everyone was coming through and willing to appear on the show without much pre-discussion. I just had all these amazing guests just week after week. I was amazed almost that there was so many great people willing to appear. And I had it in my mind because I'm an idealist, I guess, in my own way, that it's just one big happy family here and we're all working towards the same goal. And then eventually it's only a matter of time because it's just how people are. They don't get along, and people rub each other the wrong way and all this kind of thing. And now I am at the point where, hey, I've had guests on this show who don't like other people who are guests on my show, and have had confrontations with each other, not physical, but probably on Twitter, like you alluded. Um, I've had people, warn me about this person's not an authentic person or that person. And it's kind of a hard thing to take because it might be coming from someone whose opinion I value, but at the same time, I can't just hold a negative view of somebody without a clear statement of what they've actually done in some manner.
Precisely.
And then there's also the thing of, even if someone was a total fraud, let's say, and had gone way out of their way to falsely portray themselves, they're still not as bad to me as Pfizer and Moderna and, some of the people who are responsible for some of the horror. It's sort of an oddity to me if someone that would go so far out of their way to be a fraudulent person. Then eventually, well, hopefully that the truth of pertaining to that will come out, and that will be a fascinating case study in and of itself. But I'd say for everybody out there, please keep your eye on the prize. It's like, to me, the analogy, it's like a basketball game. There's another team that's trying to beat you. You can't actually score points just from arguing in your own locker room. It seems
Hmm.
like some people right now, they've gotten into a thing of just figuring out they're most passionate about finding the people that they think should be criticized on their own team and engaging
Yeah.
in that criticism and almost forgetting about the fact, well, there's like a monstrous opposition and we're
No
kind of the
shit, right?
underdogs in this fight, actually.
No
Like,
shit.
so yeah, I don't find at any point that it's worth engaging in horizontal disputes right now. We still have a monstrous opponent in front of us. But all
Exactly.
that being said, I thank you so much, Dr. Jessica Rose. It's great to hear from you. I'm so glad you're in this struggle and doing all the great work that you do. And hope we could sneak in some chess games over the summer. And someday we got to figure out a way to do some kind of bass collaboration thing. Maybe we could do some sort of soundtrack or some sort of.
Oh man, I'd love it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm reluctant to use the term medical freedom now because it's not your favorite term,
No,
but
but come up with something that you feel in your heart is like, I don't even see it as like, I just see individuals, like every person I know in this kind of has their own special role and has like the effective people, for lack of a better word, I've brought something really unique to the table. So it's like I just kind of see the individuals, and I usually try and address them by name, but like, yeah, don't worry about it. I mean, if that works for you, you don't have to, you know, you don't have to do what I do. But uh, what was I going to say to though? Chess,
About
definitely.
and doing our musical,
Yeah,
soundtrack for
yeah.
the movie.
You should check out my rap that I did in Geneva too. You might
Oh, yeah,
enjoy
I
that.
saw that. That was great. Maybe we could
Well,
flip a remix for that.
I got through it.
You're an artist, Jessica. That's part of what's so cool is you're a science head and an art head, which is possible. People think that doesn't exist, but there is art in science and science in art, undoubtedly.
Yeah, it's all the same, right? I thought it was
Yeah.
important too, like since I had a stage to just not do the same thing, that I always do, which is like just speak like even though it probably would have been the same words, it's just better if you can like groove to it.
And the one of the beautiful things about art I always find is if nothing else, it gives people a little shift in perspective. So if people are expecting more of a generic speech from you, well, you threw them off in that moment. And in doing so, maybe could provoke a thought that wouldn't have occurred. And maybe that was a good thought, hopefully.
Hmm.
So I think it was awesome that you did that. And
Thank you.
yeah, please stay in touch. I can't wait to check out your Substack. And this show will be aired on Friday during the time slot where my live show is normally aired, and it will be uploaded the following Monday. So that's 1 week or a little less than 1 week from today. It's Tuesday afternoon here in New York City. But have a great rest of your day, Jessica, and just keep up the great work. You are a treasure to the, I need to find a better term than medical freedom movement.
To the
Thank
people fighting for freedom and justice.
exactly. But have a great day and thank you so much.
My pleasure. And anytime, I hope I have better news the next time we speak. But let's have a chess match or two in the meantime.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk to you soon.